afternoon, everyone. I am welcome to North America's Building Trade Union's first Opportunity Pipeline Forum. So we're so excited to have you here today. I am Melissa Wells. I am the Special Assistant to the President of North America's Building Trade Unions, Sean McGarvey, and I am delighted to see such a full room of folks who are interested in thinking about how do we continue to grow our pathway programs and access to registered apprenticeship programs. How do we also do that in a way that's going to make the industry more and more diverse, with women, more workers of color. And how do we do that with our partnerships with folks from the industry, from our building trade councils across the country, with research institutions, with our employer partners, project owners, and so on and so forth. So I'm really excited to be here. A little bit about me. I came on to the building trades about 8 years ago, and sometimes when I do the math, I'm like, was it really that long ago? But it was that long ago. And so over those 8 years, I was able to work with the Baltimore DC Building Trades Council and really helping spearhead and develop our apprenticeship readiness programs in this region. And I'll tell you, it was very rewarding work to see individuals from communities that had not historically maybe had access or even known about unions or construction unions be able to have that access. In the partnerships that we develop with a lot of local community organizations, with our elected officials at the state and local level, just the multitude of partners, NABTU always being able to provide technical assistance when it comes to the MC3 program. And so I'm really, really excited about that. I think folks would never let me leave the podium without saying that I am a state delegate in Maryland. Thank you. And so I was just sworn in for my second term last Wednesday, so I'm excited. I serve as the vice chair of our Legislative Black Caucus, so I'm very passionate about equity, racial equity, and economic equity. And I also serve as our assistant majority leader. And so with that, I want to bring to the podium someone who has really, I think, shown his commitment to this conversation today, to diversity, and that's our president, Sean McGarvey. I'll tell you, prior to working for NABTU, I had a chance to meet Sean and some of our key staff, and I could tell how passionate he really is about those pathways and expansion. And I am someone who I believe in seeing the proof, right? And seeing that you're not just saying that you care about these issues, but you're actually putting in the resources, the time, the investment to do that. And I will tell you that over my 8 years of knowing Sean, he has put his money where his mouth is. He is leveraging all his relationships, whether it's at the federal level with our administration, whether it's with contractors, whether it's with other industry partners that are very pivotal and monumental in construction, and also with our council leaders across the country. And so I'm really excited that he had the leadership to spearhead this independent research project, for us to look into the data and look at where we are. And so without further ado, I want to welcome President Sean McGarvey to the podium.
Thank you, Melissa. And we're very proud of not just the work she does for NABTU, but the work she does for her constituents in Baltimore and the state of Maryland. And I can assure you, I don't know a lot, but I know one thing, state delegate is not the last stop on the train for that young lady. Thank you all for joining. First and foremost, thanks to Terry O'Sullivan, as always, graciously giving us an opportunity to use this wonderful facility for something that he also cares deeply about. And the timing of this event, I think, is significant. This is a time in the United States and around the world, for that matter, that we reflect on the kinds of issues that we're going to be talking about today. Opportunity, diversity, fairness, the ability to work yourself into the American dream. All the ideals that Dr. King stood for, that we carry on today. So it's very appropriate, I think, that we're having this first pipeline roll out today. I will tell you that there are people in this room, colleagues of mine from around the country, who have been doing this work in their councils for decades. It was back in 2008 that glorious time to be a construction worker in the United States with the worldwide economy imploding, when I was at the IBEW construction conference at the Hyatt Capitol Hill, and I was invited to a breakfast with Tom Krieger, Mike Callahan, who was the director of IBEW's training department, and Dr. Bob Pleasure, who was a former assistant to me, and just a special human being, and a vendor. And we had breakfast, and I was secretary treasurer at the time, and they said, you know, we're really doing a lot in the apprenticeship readiness space, but it's disjointed, it's not coordinated, it's you know, different groups are doing different things. I think we could do better if we could assemble under one umbrella, develop curriculum that would be consistent to be used across the United States, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, I'm all in, it's a wonderful idea. And they said, okay, it'd be about $500,000. And I can tell you at the time, we didn't have $500,000. But the vendor that we sat with said, let me worry about that. You pay me when you get it. And that's how we started with the core craft curriculum. That group with the national training directors, along with our counterparts in the councils across the country, some of our academic friends, started working on putting curriculum together, which then became and now is the core craft curriculum that we use in our apprenticeship readiness programs across the United States. So here we are, you know, 15 years later, and I know from the work that's done in my office, I know from the work that's done across the United States, and for Canada for that matter also, but many of our councils are just phenomenal in this space, but we never actually could measure. We never were sure, and anybody that works in this industry knows that, you know, we have our fair share of detractors who don't believe what we say or what we do. And I went to Dr. Krieger and I said, we need to do a deep dive here. We need to really figure out, you know, anecdotally, I think we're doing the right things and we're headed in the right direction, but it's anecdotally, you know, I just don't know. And at that point, we said, well, let's commission a study. And I went to my board and I said, I want to spend a big gob of money to figure out if we are who we say we are, and if we're doing the things we say we're doing. And you know, they of course agreed, as they always do, but said, what are we going to do if it's not the answers that you thought you were going to get? And I said, well, guess what? I said, at least we'll know, and at least we'll know what we need to improve, when we need to improve it, where we need to work on it, but we'll know. We'll have something to start with. So that's how this study came about. And it's all about, you know, improving on the opportunities that are out there across the United States in the construction industry. One of the last sure paths to the middle class through our training infrastructure, who everybody in this room just about knows. We spend a couple $2 billion a year of our own money operating 1,600 training centers that rival anything in the world. We have 250,000 plus people in our training programs currently, and room to dramatically ramp that up when the opportunities present themselves. World-class instructors, curriculum, equipment, and the key part of all that is a job associated with that training. We are not in the business in the building trades of training people for jobs that don't exist. You have to earn as you learn in this business. As Tom Krieger says, it's the other 4-year degree, registered apprenticeship. So creating these pipelines and enhancing the pipelines for the communities that haven't always had the opportunities that they should have had. That when there's work being performed in communities, the people that live in those communities should also have the opportunity to participate in that work. And creating these pathway programs, creating these on-ramps to the registered apprenticeship system through the unionized construction industry is really what we're all about. This study doesn't paint the most glorious picture of North America's building trades unions. It's not everything that we would want it to be, but it's not bad. And I'm proud of what we've done over the last 25 years, and I greatly anticipate what we'll do over the next 25. But it gave us a benchmark. It gave a sense of, okay, here's what's been accomplished over the last 20 years. Here's what we know. This is factual data, okay? And in the construction industry, okay, there's two types of construction. There's merit construction and there's union construction. We're the union construction industry. And when you look at the study and you see the commitment, and it takes a massive amount of commitment to run an apprenticeship readiness program, to build the relationships on the local level and the national level for that fact, with groups of people who have expertise that we quite honestly don't have in the building trades, to help us, to partner with us, okay, to find the people that are most likely to have a successful outcome if they're interested in the construction industry, get them into apprenticeship readiness, and then create the slots via jobs that exist for them to get in a registered apprenticeship in the trade of their choice. And that's really what this is all about. I'm particularly pleased with the commitment of my governing board of presidents. I'm pleased with the commitment of the entire labor movement. I'm pleased with the international unions who are walking the walk and talking the talk. This is not lip service. This is something that is committed to. It's financed, it's funded, it's staffed, and it's happening every day in the United States. Now, we could do better in some places than we're doing today, and we will, but the facts of the matter are that we are changing lives with this work, okay? We are feeding a need for the industry, but we are changing lives one at a time, and we're changing communities one community at a time. And when you couple that with the timing of this administration and this Congress, who have done just miraculous work in funding, passing and funding massive bills that are going to create hundreds and hundreds of thousands of new construction jobs in the United States, whether it's through the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the Inflation Act, or the CHIPS bill. Now is the time. Now is the time to create, through those investments that the federal government's made, the need for skilled craft workforce to build and maintain those facilities. Now is the time for the entire industry, not just the unionized industry, the entire industry, to step up their game. I can speak for the unionized industry. Not only are we doing it, we're going to do it. We created a new 501c3 because, again, it just got bigger than the whole. It's called Trades Futures. Trades Futures is an organization, and I think we're going to hear from Nicole a little bit later, who's our executive director, that houses all this work that we do now. And it's a massive amount of work that goes on. It's staffed. We're working on the funding part, but Trades Futures is the key to the success for us to be able to support our local councils, our internationals, wherever they're running programs or they want to run a program, wherever they have relationships or they want to build relationships. Trades Futures is the key cog in that. And I want to thank my staff who, over the last couple of years, is like, we need to do something different here. This is getting too big. We need to have, it needs its own space. It needs to be out of NABTU. Not that we're still not involved in it, but it needs to grow on its own, and it is growing exponentially. So that part is something that we're really thankful for, that we now have Trade Futures, working on the funding, got some good seed money, some good friends of ours in different venues said, hey, this is a worthwhile and worthy cause, and they put up seed money, and now we're going for the ongoing funding. Because the one thing that we've learned about this work is, as good as our training centers are, as committed as our council leaders and our local unions and our internationals are, there's so much of this work in order to make somebody successful that we do not have the expertise at, okay? The first time that Tom Krieger told me about wraparound services 7 or 8 years ago, I didn't understand what he was talking about. But I understand what he's talking about now, right? People need help getting a driver's license. People need help getting the first car. People need help getting car insurance. People need help getting tools. People need help with bus fare. And then something that we've delved into in a big way as we continue to peel back this onion that's a little bit over our head, but we'll do our part, is affordable, quality childcare. It's a massive problem with our ability to attract the amount of people, particularly females, into the industry who are the primary child care people in their households who are responsible for that. Not that men aren't also, but primarily. And then getting them in a place where they're comfortable and dropping their children off, and just as importantly, getting them into a place where after they've gone through their apprenticeship, okay, and they're a journey person and they're really a dedicated, skilled craftsperson, when they decide to start a family, to be able to get them back. It's a massive problem in this country. So we've started 2 pilots thanks to Vicki O'Leary and the Women's Committee, the National Women's Committee, two pilots, one in Milwaukee and one in New York City. Again, quite an expensive endeavor, not something that we could carry on our own, but we're going to try and build partnerships and beta test these couple programs and see what works, what doesn't work, and what we could do better. So you're really here to hear from the real experts who put the study together, the people that are the practitioners in this work day to day. And I don't want to tie up any more of your time, but I want to thank the academics that worked on this study for oh so long. I want to thank Melissa, Allison, everybody on that's going to present today. I don't want to go through the whole list because they're here because they care about this issue. And this issue is important not only to NABTU, this issue is important to the construction industry, and this issue is important to the country. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Melissa, and thank you, and enjoy the presentation.
Thank you so much, President McGarvey. So our next speaker is our STEAM researcher, Dr. Amy Tracy Wells. We are not related, but she is with the Institute for Construction Economic Research, ICERES. And so she's who's authored the report. It's entitled, that we're discussing today, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiatives in the Construction Trade. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Amy Tracy Wells.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. As noted, this was a study conducted by the Institute for Construction Employment Research. ICERES is a nonpartisan, nonprofit network of scholars and academic researchers in the United States and Canada that's committed to high-quality research on employment and labor relation issues in the construction industry. This report is the work of 4 scholars and 2 editors from faculty and colleges from colleges and universities across the U.S. This study attempts to facilitate the strengthening of DEI initiatives in all parts of the construction sector by providing perspectives on the current state of these programs, highlighting some of the best and most innovative practices, and offering insights into recent trends in the traditional pipeline to the skilled trades, registered apprenticeship training programs. We highlight initiatives at the pre-apprenticeship, at the apprenticeship, and at the journey worker level for promoting gender, racial, and ethnic diversity in the union and non-union sectors of the construction industry in chapters 1 and 2, respectively. In addition, we undertake a quantitative analysis of the past 21 years of registered apprenticeship programs from 1999 through 2019 in Chapter 3. Chapter 1, which I wrote, focuses on programs supported by or affiliated with the union construction sector to recruit, train, and employ workers from historically underrepresented groups. Efforts were taken to feature impactful initiatives from different regions of the U.S., with the analysis including programs ranging from those that have started in the past couple of years to those that have been around for decades. While most efforts are exclusive to the union sector, some include programs supporting both union and non-union workers, and included pre-apprenticeship programs for those new to the trades to policies supporting experienced journey workers. The excellent news is that there are many DEI programs demonstrating common elements. What is clear from these is that multi-pronged efforts are needed that require partnerships with community-based organizations, industry leaders, and government agencies. On the pre-apprenticeship level, successful strategies for increasing completion rates include those wraparound supports for pre-apprenticeship training, including transportation assistance, case management for employment, housing, and legal issues, mentoring from other people of color and women in the trades, tools and clothing vouchers, and referrals to, if not outright assistance, for childcare services that feature early start times. On the apprenticeship level, mentoring for more experienced tradespeople from the same underrepresented group is essential as younger workers come across work-related issues and opportunities for professional growth. Likewise, on the journey worker level, connecting to other journey workers to discuss work-related issues is key to retention. For both apprentices and journey workers, careful monitoring and tracking of work hours, including overtime and training opportunities, are required to ensure equality of opportunities, the retention of existing employees, and continued growth of diversity. Policies such as the Iron Workers Paid Maternity Leave Benefit also increase the viability of retaining skilled journey women. Finally, decisive action in investigating and adjudicating discrimination and harassment complaints is central to the retention of a diverse workforce. In sum, increasing diversity in the trades requires a systematic approach beginning on the pre-apprenticeship level and throughout the career of the journey worker. Chapter 2, written by David Bullock and Roland Zullo at the University of Michigan, focuses on the non-unionized sector, where firms and individuals strongly committed to DEI consciously engage in actions to promote and improve diversity and make the work culture more equitable and inclusive. However, these initiatives were best characterized as efforts, not as programs. These efforts focus on recruitment, but generally are less well developed when it comes to employee retention and promotion. Similar to the unionized sector, community-based organizations played an important role in identifying recruits. The motivations for these efforts were both internal, it's the right thing to do, and external, such as responding to large firms that communicated their DEI commitments to subcontractors, and in some cases incorporate diversity into the bid criteria. Joining major industry associations that promote and recognize DEI initiatives as leaders with individual firms as leaders was also mentioned. Beyond employers' legal obligations to adhering to EEOC requirements, firms were also motivated by requirements built into government contracts. Finally, there was the perceived business goal of building goodwill in a local community. Chapter 3, written by Jihan Bilgensoy at the University of Utah, focuses on a quantitative analysis of union and non-union registered apprenticeship programs in 34 states between 1999 and 2019. The most dramatic demographic transformation has been with the increase in the Hispanic proportion of registrations. female, racial, and ethnic minorities account for more, both in absolute terms and a considerably higher proportion of, in percentage terms, of apprentices in the union sector than they do in the non-union sector. Further, completion and cancellation rates for women and blacks was uniformly lower in the union apprenticeships than in the non-union. However, women and non-Hispanic minorities complete apprenticeships at lower rates and cancel or drop out at higher rates than do white male apprentices. What that meant in 2019 is that female registrants accounted for 4.8% in the union sector and 2.4% in the non-union sector, and black registrants accounted for 9.6% in the union sector and 7.9% in the non-union sector.
Thank you, sir. I was writing down notes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wells. So I just want to do a little housekeeping. So for the Wi-Fi, it is Layuna Guest, and the password, all lowercase, is construction. And I also just wanted to at least acknowledge, I know she's here attending in support, but the president of the AFL-CIO, President Schuler, I just wanted to at least acknowledge you. Thank you for being here. So thank you so much. But again, Dr. Wells, I think thank you for that data, and I think that I know we're going to dig deeper into, I think, some of the data that she was talking about in terms of how we're getting more women into our sector, especially the unionized sector, and how we are also getting more workers of color, and what we're going to continue to be doing around retention. So I appreciate all of your work you've done, and it's going to be very helpful as we continue to advance this. But I also wanted to introduce today as well, I wanted to introduce our next speaker, a very extraordinary junior level plumber from the UA Local 1. She has a compelling story that embodies the mission of apprenticeship, readiness, and DEI programs, and that is Judalyn, who is dedicated to workforce development and is just a contagious union trades person. And so she will be sharing a lot about her leadership with Tools and Tiaras, as well as her work pioneering the Lean In for Union Trades Women program. So ladies and gentlemen, to the podium, Judalyn Cassidy.
So I'm vertically challenged, so I have to bring this down. So before we begin, I would love for us to acknowledge the indigenous peoples whose land we stand upon. They teach us that Mother Earth is a source and not a resource. And I want us to ground ourselves here in the moment for what we have gathered for in solidarity and purpose, because we have the thing that everybody needs. I know that for a fact. So I also want to thank all the people who work in the background to provide the food, the water, the mics, all of that. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because without you, this wouldn't happen. So I want to share what is possible when you invest in someone in the union like me. If you invest, your return is going to be high, and it's going to pay dividends for centuries. I say that because I grew up in the beautiful Twin Islands, filled with music, rhythm, soul, beaches in Trinidad and Tobago. But when I grew up there, I grew up really poor. And I grew up with my great-great-grandmother. And the vision I had for myself, I wanted to be Wonder Woman and a lawyer. And those things didn't happen. And the trades was the next best option for me. And I was able to go to a school called John Donaldson Technical Institute, and was one of the first 3 women to get into that program. I literally had to drop down and do push-ups to show the guy that I was willing that I can do this. And I've never looked back. I came to the US, I'm an immigrant, and I was a housekeeper, a nanny, babysitter, all those jobs I loved. But in my life, I've always had 2 major loves. I love plumbing and coffee. Those are my 2 committed relationships. And I just wanted to get back to it. And being a plumber has changed my life. I mean, dramatically. Through the union apprenticeship, I mean, I got in the hard way, the old school way, that I was non-union. Somebody saw my work ethic, saw how much I love my craft. And Brian Totoro, who is my superhero plumber, he went and spoke to someone who spoke to someone, spoke to another someone, and I became a plumber from Local 1, 371, the first woman to get in there. And thank you. And because of plumbing, I was able to get a house, get a union car, Lincoln, love that car. I'm able to help my community. My daughter is also in the trades. Sad, and I'm very brokenhearted. She's not a plumber, she's a sheet metal worker, but it is what it is. But she's in the union. And because of that, because of the skill that I've learned as a plumber, I am able to then start a nonprofit called Tools and Tiaras, where I teach girls about the union really, really young. And they get to meet amazing superheroes, because I know that tradesmen and tradeswomen are superheroes. If nobody told you, now you know. We are the people that build this country with our hands, and we continue to do it. So for me, I fangirl over tradesmen and tradeswomen. That's who I follow on Instagram and everywhere else. But because of that program now, I get to expose girls as 6 years old to women in the trades, electricians, iron workers, welders. Every trade you could think of, we do workshops and we teach them about that. And you know, what I've found is when I do a workshop or I do a camp, mothers want to become union members. And I know for a fact that if we stop being a secret, we got to stop that. You got to be so vain and very cocky about what I do. Everybody knows. I boast about being a plumber because I love it. I wake up every single day. I go to work with a pride, and I know I have something that everybody needs. I know most people in their lifetime is going to need a plumber before they need a lawyer. That's a fact. Thank you. I have the great opportunity to travel and speak and share my love of construction and the love of the trades. And recently, I have the opportunity to go to schools. And I think that's where we're missing. I go to schools and I speak to kids 6 years old, boys and girls. And about 2 months ago, I went to a school, and little kids were excited to meet a plumber. Boys wanted me to sign their Pokemon cards, their backpack, and I'm like, whoa, they get it. And I was able to tell them, when you walk in the street, you see a construction worker, we are the heroes that wear helmets. And to see that kids understand and glad to know that we are building something that they use every day was mind-boggling for me. And I'm so happy I have the opportunity every day to go show what is possible. If you invest in women and people that look like me, it pays dividend. No longer did I keep that to myself. I shared it with my community. I have a skill. I was able to go to Puerto Rico and volunteer because I have a skill, right? And we are members of the community. We vote. We are activists. So just invest. You get 30% more profits when you invest in diversity. So if you want to do it for money, do it for the money. 30% McKinsey data proves that. And sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough, because I know that if more people find out about this who look like me, sound like me, come from where I am from, this will be a game changer. And this country needs us, the building trades. They do. Whether they know it or not, we need to start telling them, start shouting it out on the mountaintops that we are the people that build. And nothing moves without us. And I really feel like if we invest and we really try our best to hit kids, don't wait until they're already 15 and 16, start really young. Let's get into schools, bring people who look like me, sound like me, so they can see, they will believe it. So before I end, I just want to read. I went to high school to speak to guidance counselors because my goal is to get guidance counselors to start to tell them about the other four-year degree, which is us, because they tell them about college. And a young lady was in the audience, and she reached out to me, and she wrote this. And this is why we do what we do. Hello, you don't know me. I am a student currently enrolled in high school in a CTE program for engineering. I was there at the TechLink HACV Harrisburg. I was very moved by you and your experiences and the speakers. And I didn't know that there were people who struggled with the same thing I do. I'm currently working on a human-powered submarine, and the team is all guys. And so I hear nasty, feminized comments all the time. So being able to have someone to relate to really made me a lot better feel a lot better about myself. And you gave me confidence today. Thank you for the work you do. I really admire what you're doing. You are so well-spoken, and even if all the counselors in the theater didn't care and were not moved, me, a student, I was moved. Thank you. I mean it. I really appreciate what you are doing for girls, and even the younger ones, that is. It is wonderful to see kids that get a head start so that they can know what they can do better themselves. And I read that because I want you to know this is why we do what we do. Put women in our unions. Use us. Yeah, use us. We already get a nice salary, so use us to go into these schools and let girls know what is possible. I teach them that jobs don't have genders, and I want you to join me in this revolution. The revolution is now, and the revolution takes you, me, money, and a lot more. So please, if you want to know what it's going to be like for somebody like me to be successful, use my story, use my daughter. We are what is possible. And it's only possible if we be intentional about diversity, not just talk it, be intentional. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my story. Please join us, NABTU and I, in this revolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judalyn, just for all that you're doing. And I think it's important to say that there are so many other Judalyns across the country that are doing the same thing. And so this conversation today is about talking about some of those examples, but saying that there's more that is out there and that we want all of you to join in with continuing to support those endeavors. So I wanted to also acknowledge, I know the General President here, Eric Dean from the Iron Workers Union, I know he's here in the audience, so I wanted to acknowledge you, as well as General President of the Roofers, Jim Heidel, is here as well in the back. And want to introduce someone who broke our hearts a little bit when he announced his departure from NABTU, but Brent Booker, the Vice President here at LIUNA, who was really influential in continuing to expand apprenticeship readiness and just very supportive of all of our endeavors around diversity and inclusion. So wanted to make sure that we acknowledged him as well. So I wanted to continue to move the program along, but wanted to introduce the Secretary Treasurer of the AFL-CIO, Fred Redmond. He is the first, I believe, African-American Secretary Treasurer, so he has broken that milestone, but he is no stranger, I think, to breaking barriers in the industry, and so we're excited for you to be here today and just share some of the work that we've been doing with you. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, I'm sorry. Good afternoon. Look, myself and President Schuler want to be here, and because I want to quote our former vice president, now our president. This is a big effing deal, okay? This is a big deal. You know, coming off of this weekend, we just celebrated Dr. King's birthday, and you know, in 1961, when Dr. King addressed the AFL-CIO convention, he came together and he talked about the historical partnership between labor and civil rights, because Dr. King was very clear and intentional that you cannot have social justice without economic justice. And this document, this blueprint, it reflects the very values of organized labor, what we should be about. And NABTU is not just talking about it, they're being about it. You know, when listening to Judah Lean, you know, it's a testimony that if we give people the opportunity to express themselves and to show their initiative and their creativity, if we give them the opportunity, what lies ahead is more than the job, but it could be a life-changing career. And NABTU has really, really led the labor movement in what we can do in organized labor in terms of changing people's lives. President McGarvey, I can't thank you enough and all of the building trades for taking on this commitment, because NABTU is really, really leading the labor movement in this area. I know firsthand. I've had the opportunity to work with Melissa. We've been going into high schools, talking about what a career in the building trades means in underserved communities. We're reaching out and really looking for the next generation of Judah Leans and people around this country who feel as though throughout their lives they've been disrespected, disinherited, despised, denied. But here in this program, in this union, through the North American Building Trades, they are being able to see that if you hold up your responsibility, if you apply yourself, if you're giving the opportunity, okay, if you take advantage of it, is that you too can participate and enjoy in this so-called American dream and have this economic justice. And, you know, I cannot, you know, and look, truth be told, it haven't always been that way, right? It have not always been that way. But NABTU has really, really showed that how far this labor movement has come, how far our commitment towards social justice has come, and how we're really, really living up to what Dr. King talked about when he talked about that coalition between civil rights and organized labor. So look, I encourage everybody to review this blueprint. This is real, okay? This isn't rhetoric. Today, I believe in our apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs, we have more people of color and women in the history of these sort of programs throughout its inception. And that's a testament. That's a testament to all of the leaders of our building trades. That's a testament to a commitment towards fairness, a commitment toward growing our movement. And Liz and I can't say enough about, you know, what you have done, because it means so much to so many people. People who a lot of us will never know, but people who will be given the opportunity if they apply themselves, to open up doors that has historically in the past have not been open to them. So once again, I just want to thank President McGarvey and, you know, everybody from the North American Building Trades Union, because you have shown once again that if organized labor commits itself toward our core principles of fairness, of justice, is that we can not only impact our members, we can change the direction of this country and make sure that every worker in this country be treated fairly and with the dignity and respect that they deserve. So I just want to say thank you to NABTU. This is an historic occasion. This is an historic document, and this is a document that all of our affiliate unions could take and should review, because we can all make a difference in people's lives. That's what the labor movement is about. And thank you, NABTU, for leading the way. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary Treasurer Redmond. So next up, we have an industry leader, another success story from an international targeted workforce development, Alison Ziagas, the head of labor relations for Ørsted, the U.S. leader in offshore wind energy. Thank you.
Good? Okay. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, President McGarvey, for inviting me to take part in this forum, and thanks to everybody in our audience who's interested in the role of collective bargaining in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in construction. My name is Alison Ziagas, and I'm head of labor relations for Ørsted Americas, largest developer in offshore wind, both here and abroad. The energy industry globally and here in the United States has been far from representative of the dynamic and diverse world that it serves. And the more that we can understand about the challenges and opportunities from a diverse array of perspectives, the better that we'll all be. So thank you to NABTU for commissioning this study, for your leadership, and helping convene this discussion. Our company sees diversity, equity, and inclusion as an essential part of the work that we do to build a world that runs entirely on green energy. Our motto is that talent is diverse by nature. Diversity in age, race, ethnicity, and gender identity have been proven to make organizations more effective. But it's not enough for us to just make a business case about diversity. Ørsted's a mission-driven company hoping to change the way that we power our communities in order to create a better world. And with more than 5 gigawatts of offshore wind power under development from Rhode Island to Maryland, we also have an enormous potential to be a powerful platform for change, both by leading by example and through policy engagement. Creating a more sustainable world does not stop at green energy. For Ørsted, sustainability means pursuing high road wages and best-in-class measures across health and safety, governance, and workers' rights, gender equality and empowerment, healthcare and social protection, and racial justice. But we know that unless we can bring others along, our individual push for sustainability is in vain. We need partners. We really had to ask ourselves collectively, how do we ensure that the energy systems of the future are built in a new and a different way? How do we ensure that the inequities of the past are not reproduced as we build this new industry? The North Star, most fundamental component of how we think about people within our framework, is focusing on pursuing high road wages so that we are not delivering people to low quality work. But creating an environment where people can thrive goes far beyond this data point. We cannot credibly build an inclusive offshore wind industry without addressing fundamental injustice, inequity, and violence that disproportionately impact people of color and women. And I'd like to tell you about some of the initiatives that we've undertaken in collaboration with NABTU to help address diversity and equity and inclusion. It's not to suggest that we have it all figured out. It's quite the opposite. The pursuit of justice and equity is never ending, and we must consistently challenge ourselves to do better. We believe in building this industry holistically and sustainably, including investing in partnerships with organized labor. In May of 2020, Ørsted and NABTU signed the National Offshore Wind Agreement, a project labor agreement that covers the entirety of our 5 gigawatt offshore construction portfolio, ensuring that those workers who are building this clean energy infrastructure are paid decent wages, work in a safe environment, have a voice on the job. All of us are familiar with the value of a union job, but what folks might not be aware of is how PLAs can be designed to support priority communities and deliver on diversity, equity, and inclusion. In partnership with the building trades, our National Offshore Wind Agreement establishes diversity benchmarks and requirements to launch long-term, high-quality careers for women and people of color in the construction industry. Collective bargaining and expanding union membership has particular relevance for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Belonging to a labor movement lowers the likelihood that you'll fall into poverty. Research shows time and again that labor unions have been central to bolstering the American middle class by raising wages and expanding access to health benefits. Union membership also reduces racial and gender disparities in wages, helping to counteract disparate labor market outcomes by race and gender that result from occupational segregation and other inequities related to structural racism and sexism. Living wages, access to health care, and generous benefits play a critical role in creating positive cross-generational impacts. We know that in terms of social mobility in this country, the greatest economic determinant in your life is your family. But, as we heard previously, a goal without a plan is just a wish. So we can't expect that by creating the demand for underrepresented workers alone, that we will succeed in delivering on our DEI ambitions. We know that we have to ensure that workers are set up to succeed and prepared, and oftentimes need access to wraparound services to address employment barriers, including transportation and childcare. We recognize the need to meet underrepresented workers where they are and build capacity to meet the goals that we set in order to achieve our goals. In consultation with NABTU, we've adopted an integrated supply-demand strategy to tackle the barriers to women and people of color's participation and retention in offshore wind. This strategy includes increasing the pipeline of women and people of color entering the industry through targeted career exploration, pre-apprenticeship training, and targeted recruitment of underrepresented vocational education students. On the demand side, we're implementing workforce participation goals for women and people of color on all of our projects and a model compliance infrastructure that ensures these goals are met. This model for construction workforce development is how I got my start in energy. I'm a graduate of Non-Traditional Employment for Women, which is a pre-apprenticeship training program in New York City that prepares, trains, and places women in careers in skilled construction. And for me, that meant becoming an apprentice with the IBEW, where I spent ultimately more than 15 years of my career as an electrician. NEW serves women broadly, but the vast majority of new graduates are women of color of lower socioeconomic status. The program provides paid work experience, classroom training, and rapid entry into union apprenticeship programs in the New York City metro area. And I've experienced firsthand the transformational power of pre-apprenticeship and union membership when it's paired together. And without that opportunity, I certainly wouldn't be here today. The women that NEW trains and places in union apprenticeship programs will help construct ORSID's projects by virtue of our project labor agreements and our associated diversity benchmarks. But the benefit of union membership for these women will extend beyond ORSID projects, enable these workers to have long-term middle-class careers in construction of renewable energy projects that we undertake, as well as some of our competitors. This is just one example of an initiative that we are working on together with NABTU. We're also working to launch similar initiatives like this to support diversity, equity, and inclusion in all regions where we have a presence. And ORSID has made substantial funding commitments to pre-apprenticeship programs across our footprint so that they may expand their reach and meet additional workers. And to be clear, we don't view these funding commitments as charity. Rather, it's a way for us to kind of underwrite our own success, and it's an investment in our own future workforce. Renewable energy is a growing part of the economy, and we have an opportunity to build this industry from the ground up intentionally. An industry where women and people of color can break new ground and bring more diversity to the construction industry. And ORSID's partnership with NABTU will help ensure that we don't let offshore wind become another low-road industry. It's our mutual hope and intent that other developers take these models forward into their projects, because it's one thing for this industry to recruit more women and people of color within their ranks, but it's not worth celebrating if these workers are relegated to low pay and few benefits. Cannot forget the majority of minimum wage earners in this country are women, and workers of color are far more likely to be paid poverty-level wages than white workers. Just to close off my remarks, I think it's appropriate that I acknowledge being a leader is hard, as you know. And achieving a truly diverse and equitable and inclusive offshore wind industry will require sustained action over time. At Ørsted, we'll never settle for just being good enough. We have to continually reflect and seek out ways to improve. We have a responsibility to our communities to build an offshore wind industry that centers racial, gender, and climate justice, creates values for workers, and to do the hard work. It's incumbent upon us to show up as imperfect partners and embrace vulnerability with both humility and compassion. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. I just wanted to kind of point out, though, that, you know, as we kind of moved our way through the presentations, Allison in her work with Orsted is just an example of, I think, what Sean laid out before, that we don't do this work alone, and that a big part of our ability to get folks in the industry is that we have to have employer partners, we have to have industry partners that that share the same goals or that are trying to get to that same place. And so I just really wanted to acknowledge how much we value our relationship with Orsted, but that true commitment to the equity, diversity, and those pathways. And then on the other piece of it, we have our contractors, who I just wanted to introduce Sam Lyon from Bechtel. So they are one of our great contractor partners here with NABTU. Sam is Bechtel's Global Workforce Services Manager, and his organization administers the policies and procedures that apply to our craft professionals all over the globe. And so with that, we want to thank you for being here, and we'd love to have you up to the podium. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Sam Lyon. I am Bechtel's Global Workforce Services and Labor Relations Manager. I'm also the current chairman of the North American Contractors Association, and I've had the pleasure of working for Bechtel. This year will be 32 years. Thank you. I'd like to thank President McGarvey and NABTU for the invitation. It's really fantastic to be here. It's a privilege to be a part of this. And also, I want to share that I am on the board of Trades Futures, and it is truly an honor to be there and to help springboard these programs into the industry. We, Bechtel, are committed to apprenticeship readiness programs at every level, and I'm going to spend a few minutes to talk about that and our experience with apprenticeship readiness programs on our projects. The first thing I want to share is this program works. It's fantastic. You know, we build a lot of the mega projects here in the U.S. and around the world. We have the opportunity to see what is being developed and implemented elsewhere, and this is fantastic. And we have firsthand knowledge that it's effective and it works. Second, we also at Bechtel are committed to DEI. These ARPs are focused on that, focused on women, focused on underrepresented groups. We put them on 3 projects in the last 3 years. The best statistics we have on one of our projects is that more than 40% of the participants in the ARP class was women, and over 80% were from underrepresented groups. Those are very lofty goals. Those are the best statistics we have on any of our projects for these ARP programs, but it is achievable. Third, I don't know if everybody is aware, but it's a challenge for apprentices and for contractors and for owners, for apprentices that enter these programs to actually make it through the program and come out as a journey person. I don't know if you're aware, and it's disturbing for me to say, but the statistics show that half or sometimes more than half actually never journey out, we call it. The statistics for these types of programs is much better. And so with a partnership with all of us, it's going to help attract and retain apprentices through their programs into the journey level. Next, what's happening in the U.S., at least in my career, in my opinion, for the demand for construction workers is absolutely unprecedented. There never has been a bigger challenge than I think what we're collectively facing today. But with that also comes the best opportunity that we've ever had to add to the workforce. There's simply not enough workers out there, and we're very concerned, we contractors, owners, everybody, on what we're going to do to be able to staff all these projects. We have to add hundreds of thousands of construction workers, literally hundreds of thousands, to meet the demand today. And when we look at what's coming in the future, it's even scarier. I mentioned again that these programs work. We've seen great results. One of the things that we had in common for those 3 projects is we had PLAs on those projects. And through those PLAs, we operationalized these programs with the support of NABTU. And I want to talk a little bit about joint programs for a moment. This joint support, where we partner with NABTU, we partner with the local building trades, we partner with the local unions, we partner with the owners, we partner with community-based organizations. All of that is what makes this work. I want to give you an example. This core curriculum training, we have to be really coordinated before we kick off a training program like that. Because the moment that those participants graduate from that training, they have to be accepted into an apprenticeship program. Then they immediately have to be dispatched to the contractor's project. If all that doesn't happen, then those individuals go elsewhere. So that type of joint ownership, that type of cooperation is essential for this to be effective. We actually have another large project that's coming up in Ohio. And for the mega projects, I think, provide additional mega opportunities. Besides the fact that we require thousands of workers at peak, these projects are often very long in duration. So these participants can come out to our project and potentially journey through their entire 4-year or 5-year apprenticeship program and become a journey person with one contractor on one project. By the way, all along the way, these apprentices have health care. They begin earning retirement, 401k pension, earning while they learn. It's just a fantastic opportunity. There's an old proverb that we have to tweak today. It's a little dry up here. You can give a man a fish. Well, we need to change that to you can give a person a fish and that person eats for a day. But you teach that person to fish and they eat for a lifetime, and so do their families. And that's what's happening with these types of programs. As Sean mentioned, we're changing lives. And in this project in Ohio, we have the opportunity to actually do hundreds of participants in ARP programs for this very long, very large duration project. I'm going to be brief, so I'd like to close by saying that trades futures and ARPs are the best answers that I've ever seen to help recruit, develop, diversify, and retain the next generation of crafts professionals. We are collectively positioned to help make an enormous impact in this industry and springboard thousands of workers into careers, earning while they learn, becoming a part of America's great middle class. We are fully aligned with NABTU on this opportunity and this initiative, and we look forward to working with them and everybody, all of our partners, to put this program on all our projects going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And I really want to thank all of the presenters. And I think that it's just that conversation we just had was a great way to think about all of the I guess the entire kind of supply chain of individuals that are key in terms of understanding where we are when it comes to where we are with our data around women and seeing more diversity in the industry. When it comes to our industry leaders understanding and valuing that diversity is important, but also that quality, that economic aspect of the career pathways is equally important. And when you have contractors who understand that these are all the shared goals that we should be aspiring to and also putting plans in place. So I really want to thank all of you for that. And I know there's so much more work that we'll continue to do with each other. But as the rest of the presenters I'm like, I don't want to say get out of here, but as we transition to the next segment of our presentation, I wanted to bring up the folks from our panel that will be presenting. But before I did that, I also just wanted to remind folks that there's water in the back of the room, as well as restrooms back to, I think, the first hallway from the elevator. And then also a reminder that we will be having a reception this evening or this afternoon after the panel finishes. So before I kick off the discussion, I'm going to introduce our panelists as they're making their way up to the table. So with us today, we have Vicki O'Leary. She is General Organizer and Director of Diversity at the Ironworkers International. Vicki also chairs the NABTU Tradeswomen Committee, which comprises representatives from all 14 of our affiliates, leads women initiatives, including the Lean In for Union Tradeswomen that you heard Judaline, that she helped pioneer, as well as the Tradeswomen Build Nations Conference and Movement. We also have with us today Nicole Schwartz, the Executive Director of Trades Futures, which is a 501c3 organization that is helping advance successful diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives like apprenticeship readiness programs and helping folks get access to middle-class career pathways in construction. And with us today, we are very fortunate that we have 4 of our council leaders from across the country. We have Ryan Boyer, who is the business manager and new head of the Philadelphia Building Trades Council. We have Chris Hannon, who is the executive secretary of the Los Angeles Orange County Building and Construction Trades Council. We have Brian Doherty, the secretary treasurer of the Greater Boston Building and Construction Trades Council. And we also have Greg Lancette, who is the Central Northern New York Building and Construction Trades Council. So, thank you, yes. So I really want to thank you all for being here. And just wanted to say that Vicki, as well as Nicole and all of our councils, they are really doing a lot of work at the local level, regional level, to expand and support pathways into apprenticeship, to support the retention. We heard how important that retention is, to also support retention of individuals, and to continue to think about ways that our local building trade councils and NABTU, how we can continue to support folks and think about innovative ways to recruit and educate potential workers and individuals about what this industry is like and that there's a place for them in this industry. And so I think, Vicki, I wanted to just start with you. And I know that you have your own unique experience and kind of was hoping that you could help us understand some of the differences that you've seen in terms of DEI initiatives between non-union and union programs.
Well, I think just because it was also brought up in the report that the first thing I need to talk about is the ironworkers paid maternity leave. I think that it's one of the best things that we could have done at the time. In 2016, at the Tradeswomen Build Nations Conference, we had a caucus with our general president, and one of the women asked, how come we don't have maternity leave? And she talked about losing her child because she worked in the rod patch one day too long. And then we started talking about how women were hiding their pregnancies on jobs, and they weren't being honest with their doctors about how grueling and how hard the work actually was. So Mr. Dean, our general president, tasked me with trying to figure out how we could come up with a paid maternity leave. And it was 9 months from the time of the conference to the time we rolled this out, which is really record-breaking time to get this done. So we're really proud of that. But the stats on that, so far, at the end of 2022, we had 143 women use this policy. That's 143 children that ironworker women have brought into this world, and we've spent $1.5 million. So really, that's a great bang for our buck. 83% of them came back to work after they had their children. Tradeswomen Build Nations is the largest gathering of tradeswomen in the world. 10 years ago, there was only 600 women at the conference. In October of 2022 in Las Vegas, 3,300 women were at the conference with our allies, our general presidents. I think that's huge, but that's one of the greatest retention tools that we have, is sending women to this conference to where they have mentorship, they have friendship, They meet women from all over the United States, Canada, actually all over the world. We've had women from Ireland and Africa. I think that's huge to have this largest gathering of tradeswomen in the world. And then we talk about pre-apprenticeship, and I wish that I would have been able to be in a pre-apprenticeship when I got in 1985, because I felt like an anomaly. I was in the first group of 5 women in my local that got into construction and ironworkers. And thankfully, I had those 5 women on that first job that I went to. And if it weren't for a PLA, Project Labor Agreement, I probably wouldn't have been on that job. So I am a product of Project Labor Agreements from McCormick Place in Chicago. And NABTU, every single month, honors 2 journey-level tradeswomen and 2 apprentice tradeswomen. Not only do they get a shout out to their local, but they also get their photo in social media. It's on the website. It's a great thing to see these women because they're making it normal to see women in hard hats. So I really want to commend you for the tradeswomen heroes as well. So far, there's been 108 women tradeswomen heroes. So that spans 27 months that this has been going on. So I love the longevity of that. The ironworkers came out with the Be That One Guy program after, in 2017, on Valentine's Day, a tradeswoman apprentice, a carpenter apprentice, was murdered on a job in Fresno, California. That night on social media, it went crazy. And I asked the women in our own private forum, have you ever been afraid other than the actual work that we do? And there was a resounding yes. And I knew that night, in talking to a couple of other ironworkers, that something had to be done, because I had been afraid at one point in my career by people that I worked with. So when I was talking to the 2 ironworker women that night, I said, why couldn't there have been that one guy on that job that could have stopped this? And they said, that's it. I'm like, what's it? And they said, be that one guy. So that's how the crazy name of Be That One Guy came about, was because we knew that if there had been one guy on that job that would have said something. You know, we have that saying, see something, say something. And this really just goes along with that whole premise. So I think that when we talk about the difference between non-union and union, when you look at the union, we have programs. We have programs that are helping with maternity leave, that are helping with bullying, harassment, and intimidation, that are helping spotlight tradeswomen on a monthly basis, that gathers tradeswomen yearly for the largest gathering of tradeswomen. We've put our money where our mouth is. And I am a product of the building trades. I am thankful that I had a union when I started my career in Local 1 in Chicago. And I see the difference. So thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Vicki. So as you're continuing to hear that there are many successful DEI initiatives that the building trades that we are using across the country, and so one of them that I would like for us to dig deeper into is just looking more into some of the programmatic work that's taking place. And I was hoping that Greg Lansett could share some of the programmatic things that y'all are doing in Syracuse, and I think how that your partnerships are, I guess, helping those programs be successful and creating more pathways.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you, President McGarvey, for assembling this and asking me to speak on this matter. The program in Central and Syracuse, New York is just like many others. It came out of years and years of discussion, and it always missed a piece or two of the puzzle that you're hearing about today, whether it's a project identified, whether it's where to house a program, who to offer the program to, and all of that, just like that. And really what it took was everybody to just check their egos at the door, leave your pride there, and start building, and not letting perfection getting in the way of progress. In our industry, we're constantly measuring, cutting, adding, and that's really the approach that we took at that. The original project in mind, there were a lot of end users and stakeholders identified in a big table approach, conversations in the community, and it took the State Department of Transportation to be the first one to throw in. And they threw in on a almost $2.5 billion highway replacement project, which gave it the better path and the better flow. One of the speakers just recently said, if you don't have somewhere to go for the graduates, retention is very difficult. That is absolutely spot on. So, if you are at this somewhere in your community and there are an identified piece or two missing, reach out to everybody to try to get that piece in the puzzle to keep the flow going. We're about to graduate our fourth tranche, so really it's a new program by all measures. The infrastructure project with the highway replacement hasn't started yet, but in the meantime, there's a corporation, Micron, actually chose Central New York for the site of their mega campus. And during a lot of the meetings with the Micron folks over the months and months, it became very apparent that it was a synonymous goal. And when they heard that we already had the program up and running, they took a look at a little bit of the features, and they actually offered to fund up the project during the duration of their project. So a very quick shout out, my director of training and education for the United Association, Brother Ray Boyd, is here, and congratulations, Ray. And General President Dean, I just want to send a telegram in that your affiliate in Central New York is very proactive, and he has been housing our Pathways program for about 2.5 years now of much needed space. But with some of the cycle of other projects and other people catching on, it makes it easier to add to it so they don't have to reinvent a competing or another system to run parallel with that. They are starting to join in. So thank you, each and every one of you that had a role in that, and thank you, NABTU.
Thank you, Greg. So I wanted to move on to Greg's right, to Chris Hannon from California, and wanted for you just to share about the workforce development that you are spearheading with your partners in the LA Orange County area, and how that's having an impact on increasing diversity.
Sure. Thank you, Melissa, and also thank you, President McGarvey, for inviting me out here and getting us all together to talk about diversity and inclusion. In Los Angeles and Orange counties, it's really a three-pronged approach. It's our project labor agreement, it's registered apprenticeship, and it's our apprenticeship readiness programs utilizing the MC3 curriculum, or the multi-craft core curriculum, spearheaded by NABTU and the training departments of our international unions. In Los Angeles and Orange counties, we have over 150 project labor agreements. And because we have so many project labor agreements, and they're not just project labor agreements for union labor, but also include local hire and targeted worker outreach, it really drives the demand of the local contractors. It drives the recruitment of our local unions and our apprenticeship. And that apprenticeship is the key to getting diverse communities into our trades. You know, just like an entry-level position in any occupation, if you require 10 years of experience and you require a master's degree or a bachelor's degree to get it, you might have somebody with the degree, but how do you have 10 years of experience if someone's not giving you a chance? You don't need any experience to come into our trades. You just have to be willing to work hard. And our registered apprenticeship does that. In LA and Orange counties, we have over 21,000 apprentices that live in Los Angeles and Orange counties because of the demand that our project labor agreements drive. And our apprenticeship readiness partners, today we have 21 programs, and we're working on implementing number 22 and 23 as we speak. Because of NABTU's support and the executive board of our Building Trades Council and our previous leadership, we were able to start a nonprofit to support those programs. And since we started the nonprofit about 5 years ago, we've gotten over 1,200 graduates from the MC3 programs into our local unions. And it's not just who took the class, but who actually got into our local union. And it was mentioned earlier about the trade of their choice. We don't drive students towards any one trade. We try to introduce them to all the trades, something maybe I would have done better in our trades if I would have had the opportunity to learn about all of our trades. But out of those 1,200 placements, not students that took the class, placements, they got into 35 different local unions. 93% identify as individuals of color. In our community, we're largely, we have a large Latino population, but it hasn't just been introducing the trades to our Latino sisters and brothers. 34% identified as African American. Many, and in some cases as high as 40% formerly incarcerated. And the thing that we struggle the most with in our area is trying to introduce the trades to women. Our participation numbers were nearly 8 times higher through our MC3 apprenticeship readiness programs. Again, the ones that got into the trades, not women taking the class, but actually ones that registered, took the class, completed, and actually got into our local unions and who are turning out today. So the apprenticeship readiness program is key to us introducing diversity in our trades. You know, I found out about the trades through my dad. There's nothing wrong with that, but it can't be our only source of recruitment. Our local unions have many different great programs. They have caucuses within their local unions and within their apprenticeships that mentor new applicants, mentor apprentices, mentor journey level members. But we need to do something as a Building Trades Council to complement that recruitment, and we definitely see it moving the needle in Los Angeles. And you know, when you're talking about 2 counties really having more apprentices than just about any other state, and that's not all that belong to our unions. Those are just the ones that live in those 2 counties. The workforce development policy, the project labor agreement, apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship, really teaching us all how to do these jobs, and that apprenticeship readiness, the nonprofit. We have 4 full-time employees that just support students getting into our trades. They don't negotiate project labor agreements. They don't do anything political other than trying to help people. And we have a board meeting today that I'm missing, and we're getting approval to hire a 5th. So we're going to have 5 people just working to help people find out about our trades, get into our trades. We don't want any barriers. So when we mentioned we have to help people get their driver's license at times, our case manager, full-time case managers help people get their driver's license. We provide stipends when necessary. We don't want someone taking a class for money, but if they need to be able to put food on the table while they're at class, we don't want there to be any barriers. So that nonprofit, the support that we get going after grants collectively as an industry to help people, definitely moving the needle in our area.
Thank you, Chris. I kind of, this is maybe a little off the cuff, so I apologize if I catch you off guard, but I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your partnership with LA County, and in terms of, you know, I think not only them seeing the value of project labor agreements, but also their office of, I think it's around women, and just if you can talk a little bit more about that, because I think that's something that we haven't really discussed, and I know that as we think about meeting the moment of the federal investments, it's going to be important that our county and state offices that are focusing on not only increasing high growth workforce pathways, but also where are they when it comes to seeing the need for more workers of color in the sector and more women, and specifically not just the goals, but how they're actually putting in place programs or partnerships like what they have with the LAOC Building Trades.
Yes, so we do partner with the County of Los Angeles on our project labor agreement or our community workforce agreement. We have a joint committee where we look at ways to help more women find out about the trades and go to work on county projects. The County of Los Angeles, the workforce development platform that they have, they're America's job centers that serve the community. We partner together with those America's job centers. They actually help fund our nonprofit to fund programs such as women in non-traditional employment roles, which is a highly successful apprenticeship readiness program. But we look at the data. We want to know the data just like NABTU wanted this study, whether the data is positive, whether the data is negative, whether the data is neutral. We can't move something if we don't know if the actions we're taking are having an effect in a positive way. So if we're taking actions that don't move the needle, we need to refocus and put our actions into place. And when we look at construction work as a whole, we look at hours that were worked by women in the trades, and we look at what crafts they're worked in. And under the project labor agreement, our female participation is many, many times higher, generally is averaging about 4 times higher than the work without the PLA in the county. So this last month, we took a vote at the Board of Supervisors to widely expand our project labor agreement. We're even looking at expanding our project labor agreement on affordable housing projects, not only to help all county residents to come in careers, but actually even be specific about getting more women into those careers. So it's great to have an end user, and it's great to have contractors, because as the Building Trades Council and as construction unions, if we don't have employers that are willing to come to the table, and we don't have end users that are looking to drive that conversation and put practical policies in place with teeth, we're not going to get there. And the County of Los Angeles has been really supportive in diving down and looking at the data and, hey, is this working? Is it not working? And we meet on a regular basis to change our direction. And as you can tell, I've invited Melissa to help out in those discussions.
Yes, thank you. No, I just think it's really important because we have end users like Orsted, but we have state and local government that are also end users, federal government as well. And I know from my experience in Baltimore how important those partnerships are with state and local government, and that they sometimes are a missed opportunity when we're not able to get them to buy in to the high growth pathway, to understanding that working with partners like the building trade councils that have apprenticeship readiness programs, that have the contractors, have the registered apprenticeship programs. When they don't work with them, it's a missed opportunity to not only continue to grow on the data that we are here to talk about today in terms of the numbers of women and workers of color in the industry, but also it's a missed opportunity to also see the economic security and the long-term economic stability of workers. And so I think that we cannot forget how important our government entities, state and local especially, how important they are as end users. I wanted to also bring our colleague from Boston, Brian Doherty, into conversation. I've seen Brian, I think we've been he's in DC a lot, but he's also doing a lot of great work in Boston, but really has been a true champion and I think very vocal supporter of apprenticeship readiness programs. The program in his region, this gentleman by the name of Marty Walsh helped establish that apprenticeship readiness program. Don't know if folks know who that is. But he's a pretty important person. And so I'm hoping that, Brian, you could just share a little bit more about the work that y'all have been doing in Boston and where you see yourselves moving on to next.
Sure thing. Thanks, Melissa, so much. It's a real honor to be here, and thank you for all you do for us up in Boston, so thank you. Thank you, Sean, and Brent, and Mike, and Betsy, and everybody who put this on, and the panel before us. This has been a great event, and so great to see so many community allies and government allies in the room for this important conversation. So I like to do the thank yous, but I'll do my best to stop that stuff. But huge thank you. Honestly, there's a conversation happening in Davos right now, the World Economic Forum, of everybody, I shouldn't say this, but people that don't have our values are meeting in Switzerland right now to talk about how they undermine collective bargaining, how they stop project labor agreements. So I just think it's great that we're all meeting to push back. So if you can, start tweeting at them. All seriousness, yeah, it's an honor to be here. The Building Trades Unions in Boston, I've been doing this for about 25 years. I'm a proud laborer, so thank you to the laborers for hosting this event. The reason I just want to get to the start of Building Pathways. And Marty, the Secretary of Labor, he was a transformational figure up in Boston. He took over the building trades. He had done some work in the elected sphere, like you, Melissa, and so many others. And he came to the Building Trades Council and he said, hey, listen, the building trades does great things. It's great wages, great benefits. It puts food on the table. If your child's sick, you can take them to the world-class doctors in Boston, and the insurance will cover the payment. It also gives you a dignity or a dignified retirement. It's done that for 100 years, but it hasn't done it for everybody. We have to be more intentional. We have to figure out ways that we take this huge, strong, powerful organization and push it in a direction toward just justice. Just simply put, make it a justice organization that fights for every person in our community, gives everyone a chance. And I think that's the role of a multiracial working class and a strong labor movement. That was what he brought to the table in Boston. And he brought all the building trades folks together and he said, hey, here's the idea. Let's talk about this program we'll call Building Pathways. We'll do it through project labor agreements. We'll incorporate the MC3 program that the National Building Trades is putting together, and we'll figure out ways to have this conversation everywhere we can to make sure everyone has workers' rights and then all the benefits that come from it. And this is a long story, but I'll make it as short as I can. What did that mean? Who wanted to hear about that? Our universities, our hospitals, some of our bigger development teams, some of our contractors. So to be honest with you, it was an internal strategy and an external strategy. It was how do we have this conversation in so many places just to lift workers' rights and the labor movement to where it should be, which is everywhere. So we feel pretty strongly, Building Pathways started about 11 years ago. It has taken hundreds of Boston residents and given them career opportunities in the building trade unions. Of that number, and I like the way you said it, folks who identify as people of color is over 95%. People who identify as women is over 50%. This is hundreds of Boston women, people of color in Boston, who are strong and proud building trades trade unionists, who were brothers and siblings and sisters in our movement. So why is this so important for us? The building trade unions and the labor movement on the front line against income inequality. That same group of people that I just mentioned are meeting in Davos for their junket are just made 2/3 of all the wealth that was created in the past 2 years. I know everybody's looking at the reports. They are making a killing. And people come to Boston and they try to cash in on Boston and make a killing there too. And the building trade unions and our other partners in organized labor are the ones who meet them at the front line and say, if you're going to come to cash in on our city, we're going to make sure that you treat our neighbors and our friends and our workers here fairly and give them the benefits that they need. So that's what Building Pathways was. And from Building Pathways, just to wrap this up, we started an organization called the Policy Group on Trades Women's Issues, figuring out what are the barriers that anybody might face getting into the trades and how do we combat them and eliminate them. We started the Care That Works campaign. It's a child care campaign that is making sure that anyone who wants to join the building trades, child care is not going to be an issue. Everyone loves their kids and wants good child care for them. How do we as an organization make sure they have it? Lastly, maybe second to last, Trades Women Build Nations. We've gone to that conference 7 years in a row. Vicki, it is the best labor conference probably in the world, definitely in the country, that we have been to. And it does amazing work. We were proud to launch Women Build Boston. And Women Build Boston is just 1,000 trade sisters in Boston who wanted to do a local one to support and build momentum toward the national one. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It can't be done without partners here in DC, so huge thank you to all you provide for us. And then to our elected allies who help us in this fight. We need you, and we're here to partner with you. So thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Brian. I wanted to raise the young man, Shaitan, and he came through your program,
Yeah.
correct? And is he now, is he in leadership at the
Oh, yeah,
council now? I wanted to,
Great question. So Shaitan went from pre-apprenticeship to leadership. He was
Yes.
unanimously supported by the Building Trades Council to be the business agent for the Boston Building Trades.
yep.
So very happy.
And so I think that's a really good segue to Ryan Boyer, our council leader from Philadelphia, a laborer, a business manager. came up through the ranks in the union and is now the head of the Philadelphia Building Trade Unions. And so really just want to congratulate you on all your success, and wanted to hear more from you. I know you're still starting out, still getting there, but okay, you got it. Never mind then. So let's hear, let me stop speaking for you then. So let's hear more about, what more can we be doing to help you be successful and continue to increase diversity amongst your ranks in Philadelphia.
Thank you, Melissa. First, let me preface my talk with saying an enormous debt of gratitude goes to you, President McGarvey. It takes leadership and courage to get actual numbers and get a study. You won't improve anything until you measure it. And we didn't know where the metric was. We didn't put our thumb on the scale. I am proud to be a member of the North American Building Trades Unions because that is leadership. I'd like to thank you, Melissa, for a very, very great conference. Betsy, Mike. I, too, am a proud, rowdy laborer, like my brother here. I think we need to understand the moment. We have a president and obviously a labor secretary that is very hospitable to us. We have to understand that in major cities, they're predominantly minority. We have to do better. We all do better when we all do better. And in Philadelphia, we've been doing pre-apprentice work for 30 years. The person that mentored me and raised me, the late, great Sam Staton Sr., started the Diversity and Apprenticeship Program. Ray Boyd was there, and when they were building the stadium, and they said, if we're going to build these two stadiums, we're going to make sure that the workforce on these stadiums look like the population in Philadelphia. And from that program, 46% of all active journeymen of color came through the Diversity and Apprenticeship Program. So I'm proud to be from Philadelphia. We have great partnerships with the city of Philadelphia. They had a program, Rebuild, $600 million to repair parks, recreation centers. Everything is covered with a PLA, with diversity and inclusion, local higher language. But the pre-apprenticeship program is where we need to do better. We don't currently have the child care. So my right ear went up. We will have that. We're working on an initiative right now to improve the bathrooms at facilities. Our women in construction group told us that the bathrooms need to be improved. And I say that not to be a small thing, but as a barrier to making women comfortable on the job. We have end users like the University of Pennsylvania that is the largest private construction user in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, completely bought in to all of our pre-apprenticeship program. We run it through the Philadelphia Building Trades. We use MC3 curriculum, and we help them get a license. Everything that we think is a small barrier becomes a huge barrier. Although I got outvoted, I do not like giving people everything. But we did give them a stipend to pay for tools. I want some buy-in, but I got outvoted, you know. We do have a democracy. So we have started to take any artificial barrier out. And what I'm most proud of is not only do we give people, formerly incarcerated people, a chance, we started a program with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that said, simply, you give us 10% on these projects. If you get a PLA, we'll make 10% of them people that just came home from prison. We train them in the prison, they come home, and instead of getting a voucher for a halfway house, they stay at one of our overnight apprenticeship programs. We had 97% retention. And the only person that we didn't have, it was one person that wasn't retained, and that was just because he just couldn't hack it. It wasn't that he didn't have the opportunity. He didn't like to be out in Philadelphia. You may have to be in 30-degree weather and 110-degree weather. I saw my friend Joe Baralotti Sr. back there. He used to run the bricklayers, and he knows that when you're mixing that mud, it gets about 10 degrees hotter. So I think we just need to focus and make our focus to the politicians that we have the numbers. We have the numbers from LA. We have the numbers from Boston. We have the numbers from Syracuse. We have the numbers from Philadelphia. The data is on our side. We're much better than non-union. As the young lady said earlier, invest in us and we'll pay you back threefold. And we need to be bolder about it, and we need to confront and challenge some of our leaders in unions that want to take it the old way. If you do the same thing, you'll get the same thing. So some of my biggest challenges, quite frankly, is facing some of the old school hurdles that they have. You have to be a second generation to get in here. Is inherently, the policy may be good on the surface. We want people that understand our craft. But in its application is racist, because if my grandfather couldn't get in, then I have to be second generation, I can't get in. We need to confront it, and we need to stop making it a secret. We just now spoke to kids at Strawberry Mansion, and my lead was, how would you like to make more than a lawyer in 4 years and have no debt? No one talked during it. It was a 2-hour presentation that we had. There was not one single interruption. Well, it was an hour and 30 minutes, and the 30-minute Q&A was lively. They wanted to know, and it was 42 kids. I think 32 of them took applications to get in one of our apprenticeship programs. So we have the best kept secret. The biggest thing we could do, Melissa, is not keep it a secret.
Thank you, Ryan. And I think, to the point about us not keeping it a secret, and I think continuing to bust open the doors, basically, of access, right? Continuing to do that. I wanted to transition over to Nicole Schwartz from Trades Futures, because Trades Futures is doing a lot of work just around general workforce development, but specifically around how we can continue to grow our apprenticeship readiness programs, how that model can continue to be successful, and what resources that we need to access for our programs to be more stably funded so that they can, I think, continue to serve the communities like those were in Philadelphia that Ryan serves, as well as our other councils. So Nicole, wanted to give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for having me. Thank you, President McGarvey, of course. I think the one thing, and to a certain extent it may sound a little bit repetitive, but I think it's worth repeating, that our programs need resources. Los Angeles, Syracuse, Philadelphia, Boston have all been set up and working in this space, but if we're going to expand beyond our cities, we're going to need a lot more help, and it's going to need to be public and private investment into our program so that we can provide as many resources to families as possible. A lot of barriers have been mentioned, tools, boots, housing assistance, adjudication assistance, transportation, childcare. There's, every time we have this conversation, somebody brings up something where I'm like, of course, we can, we'll need to help people with that. So I think it's really important to just, A, look at the resources, and B, to think about the partnerships. And that's one thing that everyone has talked about here, are just strong partnerships across local, state, federal levels. We can't do everything. And I think that's important to recognize that we can't do everything, and then reach out, really in good faith to community-based organizations in local communities to say, we want to be better, we want more people in our trades, and how can we do this together? And I think the third kind of piece to that is government, because government can help provide things that community-based organizations and the local building trades and their contractor partners can't. And I think adjudication assistance is a really good example of that. A program that hasn't been mentioned here, but that we talk about a lot, is our Columbus Building Futures program in Columbus, Ohio, which will be associated with the Intel project. But they've built a partnership with the National Urban League and Franklin County, Ohio, which is the county of Cleveland, to provide that adjudication assistance. And that's been key to get people who've been formerly incarcerated into the building trades. So, like I said, we can't do everything. Like President McGarvey said, we're not experts in everything. So reaching out to get not only the, the financial resources, because it takes financial resources, but also the, the human capital that it takes to get the job done. And one of those things that I will mention in particular is the childcare piece. And through Trades Futures, we have 2 childcare pilots. We have one in New York City and one in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We are working with non-traditional employment for women in New York City and the New York City Building Trades Council. And in Milwaukee, we're working with an organization called Empower Her and the Milwaukee Building and Construction Trade Council. And both of these efforts are really focused on not only recruiting more women, but once we get them in the industry too, kind of echoing what Vicki said with the paid leave for pregnancy, is to keep them. Like, how do we get them to come back? How do we make sure that we keep women once we have women in the industry? And navigating childcare, and especially navigating childcare post-pandemic, has become even more difficult. President McGarvey, you said peel back the onion of childcare, and some days I feel like I am peeling back the onion. But, we are coming up with innovative ideas and strategies for women across the country and programs who support women to find ways to get the childcare that they need at the hours that they need, because that's something that we really struggle with, specifically in construction, but also across non-traditional industries, is how can you get women and families the hours that they need for the childcare that they need, but also the cost of childcare. U.S. Health and Human Services says that families should pay around 7% of their income on childcare, and in New York City right now, people are paying around 20% of their income on childcare. And I believe, I wrote it down, only 9.4% of New York families can afford infant care if they're only at this current day and age. So we're not meeting the mark there. And it's going to take, I think the pandemic pressure in the childcare industry, once that will relieve itself a little bit, I think that will help us find the most innovative strategies. But while we're in this kind of space, but before then is just to, work where the rubber hits the road and try to provide tradeswomen and families with as many options as possible, vouchers being one of the most universally accepted options to help women access that care. But then also just navigating that system. If you're a new parent, you might not exactly know how to find the child care that's best for you in your city. So how do we put those resources together? And both Empower Her and NEW are really kind of helping lead that in both Milwaukee and New York City. So I think to kind of wrap up, what would we want you to leave with here today? Is the trades is for everyone. Everyone is welcome in the trades. We're working extremely hard to make sure that every person in every corner of the country is aware of the opportunities that exist for them in the building trades. And I think that's kind of why highlighting Tools and Tiaras in Julian's program is really important, because it's not just the building trades workers that we need today, the careers we're going to start today. It's the careers we're going to start 4 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Young girls, young people need to be able to see themselves as construction workers. They need to see this as a career field where they can thrive, where they can build the lives that they want for themselves and their families. And we're going to be the ones to have to show them to do that. So it's a long-term and a short-term strategy. But I think that we've got the leadership at this table. I'm very humbled to work with everyone here, because I think they are leaders in their space. And I think we'll be able to do what we've set out to do, because, we've got a benchmark, and now we're going to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And I just wanted to emphasize that Trades Futures, the Trades Futures will continue to be supporting all the work that you were hearing from the council leaders, continuing to support not only these councils, but councils across the country. And so just as we kind of wrap up, we have a few minutes before everyone can get to happy hour. I guess just a few things I wanted to say is, one, to thank you all for being here. But I think a few things is that we see what the data says. We see that It's not enough just to have goals, and that those goals can't just be top, but you have to have program, and you have to have the buy-in and the work of folks at all various levels, at the grassroots, grass tops, and at the top, being bought into that. It's important that we have our partners, we have our end users, we have our contractors that they're bought in on all of this. And the last thing is that we have to have the resources for all this to happen. We didn't really get to dig into retention as much as we would have liked to, but on average, when we look at a apprenticeship readiness program, upwards of $10,000 per participant, depending on the type of program that is offered, is what's required if you think about the full gamut sometimes of needs of barriers that folks are facing. And so that's not money that we have readily available, and so we will need support from the industry, from foundations, from everyone who like what they heard today, saw the data, heard what the data says, you know what, we can continue to do better. So NABTU, Trades Futures, we're all going to really need your support and partnership, and we're here to partner with you to make that goal, to make the accomplishments that we saw today, to make that an even bigger accomplishment in the next 10, 15 years. And we know that we can meet that moment right now if we all partner together on that. So I want to thank you all for being here. There'll be a chance for us to continue to mingle and talk more about all of our respective work, and we really thank you again for your support. Have a good afternoon.